Part 42. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 416. Nine-tailed smiled. This sound was very cumbersome to listen to, chalking yang and complementing yin, plucking yin/buying yang. This kind of exercise method is also the most comprehensive of our fox family. On this aspect, in this world no one dares to compare with our fox family. Can it be a matter of pride? Zhu Wei taught Yanj the exercises, and she scrutinized them carefully. However, she didn't think it was suitable for her host to practice. Because although this method of collecting yang and replenishing yin can be regarded as a book, you can improve your practice, and you have to use it every day. Especially at the beginning, you need to fight for every minute and every second. This shameless and unrestricted exercise method is the only one that can give as a baby. After collecting all the dual practice exercises in Zhu Wei's mouth, she found out that the guy's so-called exercises are all intemperate and intemperate exercises. She sighed in her heart and left all these things aside. She shouldn't expect anything from this fox. Chicken, the fandom system has been upgraded twice. Don't say that it has been upgraded twice without any effect. How can it not work? The space for the geeky system is much more spacious than before, and the equipment is more complete, and the living is very comfortable. The chicken halted and stopped. Even the air seemed to be silent. The atmosphere was a little awkward. But immediately, the cub laughed and said, "In fact, there is really no way out. It waits for the words to talk, but the words don't mean to give it steps. So it can only smile again and again, that is, the host is a ghost now. In fact, you can also try the practice of ghost charm. The host is not really a ghost, otherwise the words would not be as helpless as they are now. The chicken cub is like an appetite to sing a song. After saying a sentence, it continued after a long time, in fact, the host is very suitable for repairing magic. In a word, it was like a gigantic initiation, letting the words sing in an instant. The method of repairing the demon, the host cannot afford to lose self, but the words are different. Her tree will not be devoured by the demon before she can repair a demon. If the host is normal, she can't repair magic, but now she has a special body, and she is the most suitable for carrying magical spirits. She is completely unaffected by the existence of spiritual roots. Yan Song finally gave a hum to his face. The chicken asked again, this time, "Don't you want to know who the mighty one is?" Yanj asked, "Isn't the mighty man this man?" The chicken was silent, and said weakly when the song was about to reach its destination, "No, would you keep a little distance from this man? Although you have had that relationship, his technology looks good, but you do obsessed with beauty. This man is not as pretty as you look." It used the word beautiful for a man, apparently not taking this man into his eyes. Saying nothing. If she was really a beauty-loving person, she wouldn't have arrived in the lush foliage of today. The luxuriant leaves reminded her of her bald head again immediately, so she wanted to gnaw the instantly. OMG, this mighty one, she has to solve this guy quickly. The knock on the door sounded, and in the middle of the night, the knock seemed extremely strange. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 417. However, Shen Shizhen was not afraid. His consciousness had swept outside. Standing outside was a woman without any aura. This woman is very beautiful. His throat rolled, and the door opened as soon as his mind moved. The woman in a black suit appeared in his eyes without any obstructions. Slaves are called three maidens. They live in the yard behind this inn and come to disturb in the middle of the night. Do you want to take the liberty to ask Xiang Gong? When Wenwan's voice was like the bird's tender cries, 3 yangs, and people's bones were crisp just by listening. Shen Shizao's words beckoned, "Come here." Respect the strongest in the world of immortality, knowing that his force is hard enough, even if the woman is in front of him, she is not afraid of Shen Shishi. Although his voice is indifferent, a pair of eyes are stuck on the face of Yanj, and the eyes are fast protruding. Yan Song looked up slightly, and smiled cowardly at Shen Shishi. A smile swayed, the room was full of light. Yanj slowly dragged his shoes and walked towards the man barefoot. Shen Shizen's eyes fell on Yanj's feet. It was a pair of beautiful, well-crafted little feet. The 10 toes were round and slick, and the feet were slick and uplifted. He really wanted to hold these little feet in his hands. Without waiting for the words to approach, he could not wait to rush forward. However, his body was not close to Yanj, and his eyes suddenly stared at him as if he was lost. Yan Ji reached out his hand, his weak and boneless hand was placed on the man's face, and Shen Shizen's face shrank slowly as if it had been drained of water. About pain, Shen Shizen gave a low roar in his throat, his hands and feet struggled to escape the restraint of the words. Yan Ji turned a blind eye to his struggles. With the shrinkage of Shen Shizen, Yan Ji closed his eyes as if settled. A little bit of time passed, and the black magic gas wrapped around Shen Shizen's angry strands was detached from him and wrapped around Yanj's body. For a long while, Yan Ji opened her eyes, and she reached out her hand and waved, and Shen Shizen in front of her eyes turned into powder. As a man said, Shen Shizen is a 10 evil and unpardonable man. The practice of Yanj's practice is rather special, and he uses the evil thoughts of the big wicked as a nutrient to strengthen his magic. This method of repairing magic is also a shortcut, but shortcuts also have sequelae. It is the most easy way to lose yourself in this way. So ordinary people, after practicing, they will absolutely lose their ego because of these evil thoughts, and together with those evil thoughts, they will become cruel and suffocating killing monsters. But Yanj is not an ordinary person. Although this sequelae is a bit scary, she is confident that she can overcome it. As soon as I left the inn, I saw the man holding the red paper umbrella not far away. Even though the man is beautiful, he can appear on the street with few people in the middle of the night, and the red umbrella on his head is so bright that it seems impossible to treat it improperly. This time he did not reach out to his words as usual. Instead, he slightly raised his umbrella and stared quietly at Yanj. Yanj also stood still at the door of the inn. The 4 eyes are opposite to each other, seemingly without any emotion, so even if the eyes intersect and entangle, even if he and she look so fixedly, they still can't find any clues on the other side. For a long time, it was still the man reached out to her as usual. Mother, come here. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 418. Yanj did not resist, she walked slowly to him and put her hand in his palm. The world under the red paper umbrella was instantly isolated from the outside world at the moment the song entered. The man's warm hand held Yan Ji's cool hand tightly, and the two stepped forward slowly. Master Yanj called him, "Don't you think I'm dirty?" After the man's footsteps, his gaze was still looking forward, but the gentle voice penetrated into the ears of Yanj, warming her body. The appearance is unbelievable. The fingers of his other hand moved slightly, but the second half of the phrase "the skin is not a foreign object" was never said. The man's voice seemed to have magical power, which made people feel numb and numb. Even though the song was still calm, his heart was really upset. "It sounds good to rely on this man's voice," Zhu Wei said. "Miss Sister, if you can't kill him, let me go, all the men I've slept will listen to me heartily." Before the song was spoken, the cub hummed coldly, "It's a shameless animal." The chicken stepping on the back of the sofa said, "Hi, what is good for a man to sleep? As soon as this kind of good-skinned man grabs a lot, don't you think they're worth the price when they sleep?" Nine-tailed paralysis does not have the slightest image on the sofa. "What's the price does not fall, I'm solving the trouble for my sister." The chicken hummed again, "My wood is terrible, you really deserve you. Zhu Wei was immediately curious, is Miss Sister's sleeping man better than me? The chicken raised his head and was about to answer. Yanj said coldly, believe it or not, I chopped you into minced meat. Zhu Wei shivered immediately, Miss sorry, I question your ability, you are better than me, and I am grateful. Words of song, this animal/born. Zhu Wei has turned up and yelled at the cub, come and come, watching movies is too boring, playing mahjong. Chicken, if you lose again this time, I want you to pluck your own 10 hairs. There is no more sound coming out of the system space of the fans, presumably the sound is blocked. Yanj knew that these two shameless beasts/babies really went to play mahjong. She lowered her head and looked at the road beneath her. Master, why do you save me? The host never asked. The host was ashamed in front of the man, and he was scared to speak, so in case the man felt suspicious, the words of the song were very few, and now every move, almost all continue the host's temperament. But when the words came out, the man still squinted and said, I only save you to save myself. Yan Ji guessed that he might have some hidden diseases, otherwise his clean-hearted people would not meet with the host at a fixed time every day. However, although this person apparently used the host as a furnace. But when he was doing that kind of thing, he still had a certain gentlemanliness, but he really admired Yanj. Yan Song tilted his head and bewildered him, why? His footwork is still steady, not slow, and does not seem to be affected by problems such as Yanj, I was born of you. Yan Ji opened his eyes in surprise and looked at him with an unbelievable look. But the man didn't explain it anymore, but fortunately, the words were enough, although he was curious, but he didn't continue to question. If you ask a lot, it will always cause suspicion. She will come slowly. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 419. The carriage was already on the side of the road in front of him. The man drew a dusting tactic against Yanj in front of the carriage, and he got on the carriage together. Yan Ji couldn't guess the identity of the man, and she faintly felt that the man's cultivation was very high, and there was an unpredictable style of Superman. Such a person can't figure out what hidden trouble he has. However, Yan Ji understood that he was holding the host so much, and that he saved his mind to save the host because of the host's body. She had a speculation, presumably there was a problem with the aura in the man's danchan, so he used the host's furnace to help him exercise aura. During the day, Yan Ji took the fight with him, and as usual, turned around in the town passing by, and found a place to eat with the man. No, men don't eat, they always eat. Most of the people who cultivate immortals set aside the valley, and Yanj is not surprised by the situation of men. I also know that his own appearance and the top-to-bottom red society will attract everyone to watch, so most of the time, men will not get out of the carriage and only move around with words. He doesn't seem to be afraid to run away. In fact, Yan Ji really has a mind to run away. After all, she can practice alone now, but she can't figure out what this man thinks about magic cultivation. If this guy wants to cut off the monsters, she will stay with her in the future. There is more magic, and it may be dangerous to be discovered by men at any time. However, the man had too many secrets, and Yan Ji was really curious. She always felt that it was not an accident that the man saved his host. One day passed quickly, and in the afternoon, the man was in the carriage with the man and the woman. Only this time, his body entered, the exercises just started, and his complexion suddenly changed. At this moment, his handsome face was twisted into a green worm like a living bug and climbed up to his face. Those blue tendons gradually turned from cyan to purple from the beginning. And those green tendons gradually changed from a few at first to dozens of them, with dense green tendons all over. The most terrible thing is that those blue tendons will move, just like a worm. His red/naked body is no different from his face. Yanj stayed at this moment. No wonder this guy doesn't hate the host. He doesn't look any different from the host. The man was very distressed, his lips were clenched, and the corners of his lips even shed black and red blood. His whole body was filled with magical magic that made Yanj extremely familiar. This man? After responding, Yanj was struggling, trying to get the man out of his body. But the man's body was so heavy, he was about to lose his sense of pain, and his eyes were red with blood. He held the song tightly, no matter how he pushed it, he couldn't push him away. The red mole in his forehead was as weird as the blood coming out. Yanji sighed. She finally understood why men saved their hosts and why they said the phrase "I was born of you." A man must be a demon, but he doesn't want to be a demon himself, so he keeps suppressing it. The host is a body of the furnace. Although the host cannot cultivate, in the body of the furnace, the host is considered to be superior and superior. The man's power must be the host's violent magic filtered into his body, it became meek and magical energy that he could suppress. Today, however, Yanj has cultivated magic. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 420. However, today's Song of Songs has cultivated magic, and there is still magic in her body sucked from Shenshizhen. Although these are pressed into her body, outsiders can't see or feel it at all. But the moment she and the man did this kind of intimate thing, the bodies of the two were connected and fused, almost immediately, the suffocating magic in her body and the corresponding inheritance in the man's body. The man without the slightest defense could not suppress it for a moment, and it became the current state of madness. If men go on like this, it may not be long before they really fall into the magic and lose themselves. So after Yanj could not push him, he simply reached out and held him in his arms. She tried to guide him with her gentle double gentleness. She whispered softly and softly in his ears, "I am waiting for you, wake up." But on the man's face, the blue tendons were still increasing, and these blue tendons began to change color, from blue to black, and gradually to red. His body was heating up all the time, and it was burning hot against his body. Even the place where the two were connected was extremely hot. But these words are nothing to say, and what really hurts him is that he seems to have become a myriad of musculoskeletal bugs, trying to strangle and devour in her body, and she is soaked with sweat. But even so, she tried to run the exercises and tried to help him keep Qingming in this way. A little time passed, and I didn't know how long it took. The man's fingers moved slightly, and the stiffness that was almost embedded in Yanj's body slowly recovered his strength. The red and green tendons on his body are also slowly fading and slowly disappearing. He closed his eyes for a moment, and then opened his eyes again. Looking down, he kissed her lips slowly. The woman was covered by the sigh in his throat, and his palms pressed her carefully around her waist. Lips kissed along her eyebrows, and the covetousness in her eyes poured out like a flood at this moment, covering her. He was entangled and entangled with her, and could not be separated from each other until they fell asleep. When Yanj woke up again, he turned around and looked at it for the first time. The eyes of the man around him were tightly closed, the tall nose was very delicate, the lips were bright and red, and his face was more like the peach petals in the white, tender, making it really want to rag. She reached out and lightly touched his skin-skinned face. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she couldn't have believed that such a perfect man turned out to be a demon. The man's eyes opened when Yanji's fingers touched his face. His eyes were really bright, like stars in the night, which made people fascinated by looking at them. He was about awake from his deep sleep, and although his eyes were bright, his face was a little confused. Master Yanj called him gently, hesitant to ask, "What happened just now?" The man's brow frowned slightly. He squeezed the hands of Yanj, and his mental strength entered Yanj's body, as if he wanted to check his physical condition. He asked, "Are you enchanted?" Yanji shook his head with a look of ignorance. "What is it?" When the man saw that the look on Yanj was not fake, he stared at Yanj and asked, What happened to you yesterday to today? Hearing the words, he slowly lowered his head. The two were naked. She was in the man's arms at the moment, so even if he lowered his head, his chest was everywhere he saw it. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 421. I know his identity, Yan Ji muttered blankly and helplessly. He is going to hold a double repair ceremony with the daughter of Wu Suzong Su. He still uses the original name, and has not changed his name. And now he is already the monk Jindan everyone envied and yearns for. He is the best talented boy in thousands of years. She whispered softly, but her fingers pinched the flesh around his waist. The finger almost got into his flesh. Obviously, my heart is extremely hateful. After all, the man didn't even change his name. The man sighed and said, "You have a demon." Yan Ji looked up, her eyes were full of tears, and she cried and smiled and said, "I can't even repair an immortal, how can there be a demon? If the demon can help me revenge, I would rather have a demon." He reached out and wiped the tears on her face with his fingertips. "The demon will not avenge you, it will only ruin you." "What can I do? I want revenge." Yan Ji closed his eyes, but the tears flowed more and more. "Master, I want revenge, no matter how I want it, I want revenge, I want to kill him by myself, I want to tear it in front of everyone." His true face. There is a way. The man held her face, her hot lips touching the tip of her nose, lingering, and murmured in her mouth, "I have a way." Yan Ji opened his eyes and looked at him, with joy and eagerness in his eyes. "Really? Is there really a way? The existing method, why the host never mentioned this man?" The man reached out and stroked the sparse hair of Yanj. He asked with a sigh, "Is it necessary to take revenge now?" Yan Ji nodded his head. "The daughter of the princely suzerain may not know what he is. I have been cheated by him. I don't want that girl to be cheated by him. Everyone in the world exposes his true face. As long as I can do it, I will be willing to try it in any way." "Okay," the man said, "as you wish." "Thank you." Yan Ji embraced his waist and looked up at him, saying gratefully, "Master, you helped me, what do you want me to do?" There is no love for no reason, no gratitude for no reason, rather than asking directly. The man heard the words, bowed his head, and looked at Yanj. His soft eyes covered the delicate tenderness on Yanj's face, so that in such an instant, there was an illusion that the man did this for true love. Go to his true love. Because it was so incredible, Yanj immediately found his thoughts, but on the face, he still looked at the man with a stunned look. To your heart. His hand moved to the position of the heart of her chest. This heart must not be given to others. So this guy likes to be popular? Yan Ji blinked and asked, "I still have heart?" "Yes," the man said, "as long as you are willing to give, you have heart." Yan Ji then asked, "Do you like to eat people's hearts?" At the end, the voice was firm and soft and said, "If I can get revenge, let alone dig my heart for you, it is this flesh and blood, and I am willing to you." "No, I don't eat hearts," the man replied, "I only want your heart." Yanj didn't understand the meaning of such words. She looked at him in confusion, but instead of continuing to speak, he bowed his head and kissed her lips. His scattered ink dangled, and a few strands of brushed hair ran through her heart, some tingling and some itching. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 422. Yan Ji reached out his hand, trying to get rid of his hair, but after grasping his soft and thick ink hair, he wrapped the hair unknowingly around his fingertips. The carriage never stopped this night, walking on the ground, but there was no noise in the silent night. In the compartment, he and her ears rubbed, not the closest relationship, but the closest thing they did. This kind of entanglement, as much as possible, is like the fish with two tails about to die, looking for a trace of water on the other side. There is even a kind of words in the song, she and this man really have the illusion of feeling like the sea. However, it is only an illusion. When the horizon was bright, the carriage finally stopped. The man found a set of red dresses worn by women from his carriage, and he personally helped Yanj put on the clothes piece by piece. Perhaps this dress has been prepared for the host, and it is very suitable to wear it on Yanj. He didn't know where the grease powder box came from. Linjian sat kneeling in front of him. He sat on the couch and leaned over to help her put on her makeup. Yanj had a lot of doubts. She wanted to open her mouth to speak, but the man's fingertips were smeared with lip fat and smeared on her lips. Men's fingers are soft and slow. It's almost like being flicked by feathers, and the numb feeling spreads from the lips, making Yanj want to tremble. Just when Yanj felt he could not bear it anymore, the man's hand squeezed into her mouth. Fingers rubbed on her shell teeth, pried open her teeth, and slowly entered them. He looked at her, her eyes wrapped in intangible emotions, and the foolishness in his eyes seemed to be parting from her life and death, making her suddenly difficult to breathe. "Red dust," he said softly, "this is my name. This name is nothing like a name at all." He said nothing, took his hand back, and Wu turned around and got out of the carriage. Then he turned his head and handed the red umbrella that had been opened to Yanj, and then stretched out his hands to hold her in his arms. Yanji thought he was going to help himself get out of the carriage, but did not expect to hold her in a princess, and she said quickly, "I can go by myself. There are no eyes and trees, which will hurt your feet." This inadvertent thoughtfulness and tenderness choked Yanji's heart. "I always think this man is a weird person. Does he show affection for the host? With affection, how can you watch your host deal with different men every day? If ruthless, where does this inadvertent consideration and tenderness come from?" After getting out of the carriage, Yanj realized that at the moment it was deep in the barren mountains and deep forest. There is no other scenery except the vegetation and mountains in the surrounding area. The grass at the foot of Hongchen is half a person tall. Such a place is almost indistinguishable from southeast and northwest. But Hongchen seemed to be very familiar with this place, always holding the words to turn left and right. The two men under the umbrella were all in red. Looking from a distance, they seemed to be one. Yanji knows that the two are clearly on their way. She didn't want to miss the opportunity to learn the information, so she looked up at him. "Where are you taking me?" He answered briefly, "Go where you can get revenge." At this angle, she could see his smooth chin and the tall nose bridge. Su was a bit tired on this journey. He was still sweating on the tip of his nose. She took it out of the handkerchief that he helped her put in his sleeves and helped him wipe the sweat on his face. "Are you leaving me?" After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 423. Hongchen's footsteps swelled, his throat rolled, and he said, "I won't leave you, I will always wait for you. Once I have agreed to exchange your heart, I will wait for you to give it to me." He lowered his head and looked at her. "I will wait for you." Although his eyes were gentle, his expression was firm, and the tone was like an oath. Yan Song opened his mouth and could not say anything. She couldn't understand the mind in front of her. "Then if I leave you, do I need to find those who are treacherous every day?" She didn't respond to his words. His eyelashes trembled, and a long shadow fell under his eyes, but in the end, he returned to her, "No need. This is a step by step, and it is still the way up the mountain, so the speed is not fast." Yanj kept helping him wipe the sweat on his face. "You're tired, I'll go down and go by myself." "It's okay, so many things have gone through, what are these plans?" But he hugged her tightly and didn't mean to put it down. He heard her worry and asked, "If I leave you, what will your body do?" In his already bright eyes, the bottom of his eyes seemed to be rising and shining. The sweat beads slipped from his forehead to the corner of his eye, and he blinked, and the sweat beads fell on her forehead like teardrops. "I was born because of you," he said. "You are not dead, I am not dead." Yanj tilted his head and stared at his features in confusion. "Hong Chen, what are you?" This was the first time she called his name. The word Hong Chen shouted from her mouth, as if he brought countless fireworks, making his fingers tight, just trying to hold her all the time. What is he? What is it? He actually wants to know. He didn't answer, avoiding her gaze and staring at the road ahead. This road is tortuous, there are traps everywhere, and the road surface at the bottom of the foot seems to be covered with swords and axes, but finally it has come to an end. He hugged her and stood in front of the cave entrance. Faced with her doubtful gaze, he said softly, "Go straight from this cave, there will be a man in an ice coffin at the bottom. If you find a way to sleep with him, you don't have to worry about your daily breathing." He took the umbrella in her hand and said to her lightly, "Go." Words of song. What did she think she was going to take her with? She still let her sleep as a man. However, looking at Hong Chen's look, the man in the cave seemed to be nodding. She didn't leave, but asked him, "Is the man inside easy to sleep? Will he die after I sleep? Or will I die?" On her face, she was innocent and charming, and while she was asking these words, her hands were tightly pulling on his sleeves, and she was reluctant. His voice softened, "It won't die, he won't, you won't, and in the future with him, your revenge will be easy to report." She opened her mouth, but didn't say anything, but he understood her mind, and opened her fingers a little bit, and his voice became softer, "Go, all you want is in it." Yan Ji nodded and saw that he was leaving, so he took a step forward and pulled him. Only when I stepped on the ground of the grassy road outside the cave, I noticed that the seemingly thick layer of grass on the ground was cut on her feet like a blade, hurting. "So are all the grasses along the way?" She lowered her head to look at his feet. He always wore red boots. Perhaps because of the blood soak, the color of the boots had become black and red. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 424. Not only the feet, but also Hong Chen's legs were stained with blood. So this way, he walked slowly, and his face was covered with sweat, not because of heat or tiredness, but because each step like walking on the blade of the knife, painful. The tears in Yan Ji's eyes fell unknowingly. This is a kind of instinct sadness and sadness in the host's body. The host has been held on the apex of his heart since he was a child, but since the great change of the mountain gate, the host thought that he had lost everything, but now it suddenly felt as if there was such a person still spoiling her. Yan Ji bowed his head, not wanting Hong Chen to see himself now. But the red papa had reached her eyes. He said, "Don't cry, you will cry and wear makeup." She nodded, but tears flowed even harder. "I'll look for you when I'm done with my revenge." Yan Ji's brutal crying, rubbing his tears on his face carefully, while looking up at him, "Without you, I won't live, nor can I revenge. Whatever you want, whatever you need, I'll give it to you." In the words of Yan Ji, this attitude is actually the attitude of the host. In the plane, she is integrated with the host. Most of the time, when the host wishes are not completed, her thoughts come from the host first. Because fulfilling the host's wishes is actually no different from eliminating the host's obsession. "Okay," his voice was soft, "I wait for you." He took out a small red bag from his arms. "This is with me." Yanj held it with both hands. He smiled and waved at her, "Come on, it will be sunrise soon." As soon as the sun came out, those scars on her body would come out. Yanj entered the cave, walked a few steps and then turned back. The road was dark. No light, no openings, no ruthless grassy roads. Without him, it is as if the back road has been blocked. The road in the cave meanders. This road has been uphill all the time, and it seems that it is going around in circles, like a mountain road. Yan Ji walked in the darkness for a long time, and her legs and tremors trembled. It's like he's walking the endless sky. What kind of man is it at the end of the road? A person's path is very lonely. Yanj called the cub, Chicken, the man named Hong Chen. What is his identity? Chicken, oh, would, I advise you to leave him alone. 7 loaves? Hey don't move, I just hang the 7 loaves, ha ha ha, clear 7 to me. Song of Yan, she is climbing up and down here exhaustingly. The two guys are playing mahjong. There is a word MMP that I do not know if I should talk about it. Hemp eggs, but also the great upgrade package for fans. Where is the gift package? This is the burden. With an upset speech, her voice was almost spitting fire. What is Hong Chen's identity? Although the system has been upgraded, most of the characters in the plane can be clear, but this golden finger, I think it's boring to know the wood in advance. The chicken is determined that the current song can't deal with it, so the voice is slow and extremely arrogant. Wood, you have to rely on your own strength to fulfill the wishes of the host. Come on, I am optimistic about you. MMP, you don't steal the brand Lao Zi saw. Having said that, there was no sound. It is estimated that you are afraid of disturbing the task of the utterance song, so you have enabled a way to block the sound of the utterance song. The song, which was already panting, was turned into motivation by the chicken's anger. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 425. Mom, when she returns to the fandom system, she must wipe out all the hair on those two guys. When Yanj finally came to an end, he found that there was no so-called ice coffin man in front of him, but a door. With a little push, the door was pushed open. In the eyes is a relatively cold room. There was nothing else in the room except a bed. Yanj hesitated a little before he stepped in. As soon as she entered, the door closed automatically. The door and the wall are merged into one, and when you look again, the shadow of the door is gone. Yanj walked towards the bed. Although there is no ice coffin, but a man was lying on the bed. A man who seemed to be all air-conditioned. When he saw the man's face, he sang aloud. The face of a man is so similar to that of Hong Chen. The only difference is that Hong Chen's face is more vivid, like the red plum in the snow. The man in front of him had white hair. Although his eyes were closed, his eyebrows were cold, and there was no red mole between his foreheads. Hong Chen said, asking her to find a way to sleep with this man. But the man was so cold, she was just approaching, and felt that the eyelashes were frosted, and even the breath exhaled seemed to be hoarfrost. What's the difference between sleeping with this man and sleeping with Benjiao? She was really afraid that if she fell asleep so much, she would get frostbite in some places. However, Yanj feels that since Hong Chen is so serious, it can be seen that the credibility of this matter is still very high. As for authenticity, she needs to practice it now. If sleep can solve the problem of the host, Yanj really doesn't mind sleeping. She stretched out her hands to undress her clothes. But I thought about unbuttoning the 2 buttons. It seemed that I didn't need to undress. In fact, I could take off my pants. Yeah, you can keep warm with your clothes on. So Yanj simply resolved the man's clothes, and by the way covered the man's clothes again. There was a black quilt inside the bed, and Yanj was wrapped around him, and then he sat on the man's body. However, problems followed. First of all, this man seems unconscious, and naturally there is no consciousness. What to do at this time? The geeky system has been upgraded, and she wants to block outside things. As long as her mind is moving, the chicks can't see it. In this matter, Yanj really didn't want to let those two guys in the space of enthusiasts help out with ideas. After a short period of persecution, she suddenly thought that Hong Chen seemed to give her a bag. This way is useless, is it possible? Is the trick used now? With such a little expectation, Yanj opened the bag. Sure enough, there were 2 pills in it, and I knew at a glance that they were used to boost happiness. Yanj fed both pills into the man's mouth. Afraid that the onset of the effect would be too slow, the sun was about to come out with his eyes narrowed, and Yan Ji reached out his hand to press the men's acupuncture points. If there is a practice, she can bring the man's body into the state with one click, but she has no aura and has low strength, so she pressed it for a long time and used all her own hand skills. The effect is still the pill's effect. She finally entered the door. This is really a prelude to great suffering. When the two got together, Yan Ji found out that the prelude was nothing at all, and the combination was really tormenting. The chill in the man's body entered her at this moment like a bamboo, and almost did not freeze into ice scum at this instant.